Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us on episode 173 of Blowback, Exposing Imperial Decline. I am your co-host, Billy Bob, and I have a special guest, Leo Zhao. It is just the two of us this morning. And I say morning because I'm in the West Coast. It's a little bit after 9 a.m. I think you said it was 5 p.m., 5:20 p.m.
6
almost?
p.m. 6
6,
p.m.
almost
It
6:20.
looks like 2 in the morning outside.
In East Berlin. It's already very dark. Okay. Um, so I entitled today's episode, Is Reality Marxist? And many different ways we could approach this topic. But, I was thinking we could approach this topic through a discussion of current events, perhaps. Um, you know, I'm not exactly sure where we want to start with regards to current events. And, it's like, the totality of reality is such a broad, big, complex subject. And how do we enter into it, to have a useful and informed discussion? Um,
Well, things
you
are
know,
intensifying on all fronts, right? Things are
yeah,
intensifying on all fronts. The empire is getting more and more desperate. I feel like the different factions within on Capitol Hill and in Brussels are fighting it out, and they are really uh, you know vying for dominance within the imperialist establishment of which strategy, like, or not strategy, which tactic for the next week should we go for. I think a big telltale sign is the Rand Corporation. I don't know if you saw that paper that they released just merely 2 weeks ago or something like that, or no, actually some months ago, so, three weeks ago, 4 or 5 months ago, that took everyone by surprise, which was called rebalancing the rivalry with China. And surprisingly, it was saying that it's too late to contain China, and it's too late, and we are not going to win a war. Uh, so it is time to cooperate. It is time to coexist peacefully, and it is time to cooperate. That's what this Rand paper was saying. For audiences who might not be familiar, this is the think tank that gave us Unbalancing Russia, which was released in 2019, preceding the provoked conflict in Ukraine. And it was all about how do we destabilize Russia and how do we weaken Russia. And so this is a neocon warmongering think tank, and them releasing this paper a few months ago it took everyone by surprise. But as of, I'm not sure when, in the last week or so, probably it was taken offline. It was withdrawn. And if you go to that page, it says this paper has been withdrawn. So not a good sign.
Yeah, no, that is a very interesting thing. So yeah, Rand Corporation, very powerful think tank, very influential in influencing our foreign policy. And yeah, they kind of said, hey, we've lost this one. China's going to win. We need to just, work on cooperation instead of, this, containment, which is just a euphemism for, destruction and economic war. And all of a sudden, shortly after publication, they've pulled it from their website. So very interesting. Um, Hopefully, we get some more insights into exactly what and why, but it kind of seems obvious. It's like there's some internal disagreements, as the contradictions facing the uh, imperialist empire, increases. They're becoming more and more unhinged, more and more infighting, more and more desperate to try and figure out, what can we do? Like, what strategy ought we to pursue, to further our interests. And as as rational humans, we're like, hey, how about you try coexistence, you sick fucks? How about just agreeing to work with other countries and stop trying to antagonize them and control them? I mean, it's very basic, and this is the inevitable future for humanity. But you have these people who have benefited from an enormous, immense privilege since the end of World War II, and especially after the Soviet Union dismantled itself. You have this unprecedented privilege for these Western elites, and they don't want to give it up. It's not easy for them to convince their friends, hey, we really have to change our ways, because this is unsustainable, and we really got to adopt a different strategy. And it's tough for them to get together as a class and agree that, okay, we're going to need to surrender. We're going to need to recognize that our preeminence is coming to an end, and we have to figure out new ways of dealing with the rest of the world. Um, yeah, that's
You're right. You're right. The only way that we can understand it is through class interest. And I would say the power structure dates before World War II, before World War One. It's the same power structure for 500 years. Some would say, with good reason, convincingly, that it's even older than that. I mean, we don't want to get lizard people, since before Egypt, and anything like that. But it is the same colonial power structure that remains unchanged. There has been no disruptions, really. I mean, the French Revolution put into power, Brazil, and ever since then, 500 years, it has been basically the same power structure without interruption. Liberalism, liberalism with a capital L, and imperialism, colonialism, right? For 500 years, these Western nations have never had a disruption really in the power structure, and so yeah, they've somehow managed to convince the world that they've all of a sudden become defenders of freedom, democracy, and human rights. Um, with their putting down of their own attack dogs, the fascists that they funded, trained, and built the fascist war machines for prior to World War II, in order to suppress European socialism and in order to attack the USSR. But anyway, yeah, it's the same power structure. And now they are desperate. And on the other front, also, in Ukraine, I don't know if you read that article with what's his name, the Russian head of national security. I forget his name right now. But anyway, it's a interview that he did with a magazine called Multipolar, which is surprisingly a German magazine. I'm surprised that the people who run the magazine have been arrested or fined 20,000 euros so they can no longer operate. But this interview, it's nothing. What's new about this interview is the intensity. You're muted. You are muted.
Karaganov or Karaganov,
Yes.
Karaganov, something like
Right.
that.
Right. What's new is the intensity. Is the of his messaging. Is the I mean, things that have not been said before, like threatening nuclear war, very literally. I mean, of course, it's not lightly, but with the provocations, with the increasing efforts on the part of the EU to refuse to let peace, refuse to give peace a chance, to step up, the army, the far right armies in Ukraine, and the escalation, just stepping up, just keeping on not letting this war and threatening, range missiles striking inside Russia and things like this. And so, yeah, it's pretty intense. I mean, it's quite scary. I mean, if we back, Russia and China are on the winning side. Time is on their side, and so they will risk a world war, like a full blown out conflict all over Europe, which will affect the entire world, of course. So I mean, there is that. But on the other side, the reality really seems to be that Putin is one guy. He's one dude who's holding back an avalanche of Russian rage. It's, you know, multi-leveled injustice that has been levied against them. I mean, conservative estimate, anywhere, 500,000 to 800. What's the latest estimate that of Russian troops that have been lost? 800, 500, 800,000 men. And the robbery, the open air robbery of 300 billion Russian assets, right? And things like this. And of course, the economic sanctions. So yeah, the patience of the Putin administration is wearing very, very thin. And it's true that if he was taken out somehow, if he was replaced by someone else, I mean, it will get a lot more spicy.
So you covered way too much ground there, Leo, and I'm going to struggle to respond
Sorry.
because I have a few thoughts. You started out discussing kind of the Marxist conception of history, how feudalism gave way to capitalism. With the successful capitalist revolutions in France, in the United States, in Holland, I think might have had a capitalist revolution, but overthrowing feudalism, overthrowing hereditary monarchy, and instituting a ruling class that is expanded not just to be the royal family and the church, but also the wealthy merchants, wealthy bankers, the ownership class. And so, under liberalism that followed feudalism or capitalism, um, the ruling class expanded, and also rights for workers. Liberalism was a progressive force, arguably, compared to what life was like under feudalism. So obviously there was many forms of improvement under capitalism. Obviously it led to a technology boom, which, because we had the Dark Ages and nothing really changed for hundreds of years under feudalism. But with the revolution, it allowed the kinds of technology and industrial capacity that feudalism kept from happening. So a lot of progressive things about capitalism, but essentially the proper Marxist perspective is to understand it as it's the dictatorship of the ownership class. That's what capitalism is. And then they play this double game, right? So the capitalists, the ownership class, they have a class consciousness, and they understand that they oppose democracy. They understand that they don't like democracy. They don't want democracy. They understand they want to maintain their dictatorship, their class dictatorship, because that's where they get their immense privilege from. And so, but they don't sell it like that. They don't sell it to the workers like, hey, it's a dictatorship of us owners, and you workers are our wage slaves. Even though that's the reality, they go to great pains to obfuscate that reality, and they have this huge propaganda apparatus to kind of confuse this reality and get people to think that, oh, what we have here is a liberal democracy. What we have here is a democratic republic. This is actually not a dictatorship. The dictatorships, the authoritarianism, that's these other guys. What we have is democracy, and it's it might not be perfect, but it is way better than any other kind of system that you can have. And so this is kind of the the double game, we can call it, where the ownership class, the ruling class, has a class consciousness. They understand the reality, but they're interested in making sure that the minds of the masses don't have this understanding. They don't understand reality in the same way. And so, and they try and get us to convince us that liberalism is the best possible. It's the reality based ideology. It's just what we need to do. And they try and they proliferate this liberalism, and it's the new religion, and they want to promote it, and they have crusades, violent military crusades to force other countries to take upon this liberal religion. But so because liberalism is so important for them, because it helps them, it facilitates the maintenance of this dictatorship of the ownership class. And so it's the ideology that supports it and enables it and maintains it. And so, of course, as Marxists, we understand that there's an actual reality beneath this liberal facade, which is a lot less liberal. And so what we see happening time and again when their supposed liberal values come into conflict with their imperialist and their dictatorial needs, it's always the liberalism that no longer matters, and what matters is their their imperialist interests. And so we always see, whenever these two principles come in conflict, their core political and economic interests as a dictatorial ownership class comes in conflict with liberalism. Liberalism doesn't mean shit, and so and I think we've talked before where you can say that socialism is just people who sincerely believe in liberalism. We really believe in these liberal values of freedom and rights, and we understand that the people that promote liberalism don't really believe in those values, because when they come in conflict with their core interests, these liberal values don't mean shit. And that's why we see them engaging in genocides, all these regime change operations. They don't respect sovereignty of other countries. It's an empire. It's an empire built on power and greed for the ruling class, for the wealthy elites. So yeah, that was a lot. I apologize. So
fine.
from there,
Freedom,
go ahead.
freedom, community, equality for only the ownership class, right?
Yeah.
Black people and women could vote in the 19th century if they owned land, and they were that the ownership of land or the ownership of profit generating property is what sets them apart from the proletariat, is what puts them into the ruling class of property owners. And it's so but yeah, it was always fraudulent. It was freedom, equality, and community only for the ownership class, but it was sold as for everyone. It was always from the beginning this conflation between the ownership class and everyone, pretending or like conducting an illusion that everyone has access to these things, while all political power, decision making power is held in the ownership class. And immediately when capitalism was installed, was erected, was implemented, or was widely set up, the capitalists needed new markets to expand, and they set sail for the global south, for other shores. And while the the classic liberals waxed poetic about justice and freedom, they were committing genocide, killing Native Americans and Native Australians and countless Native peoples all over the world, and of course owning slaves. So it is a fraudulent ideology from the very beginning, and it continues to be. And so from that, you were about to transition from that to current events, or?
Yeah, no, because I was gonna respond to where we're at right now with a lot of contradictions building with the empire, because again, they're kind of playing a double game, where they pretend to be this benevolent liberal democracy representing the people, but in reality, they are a brutally vicious, aggressive, violent empire that is representing the wealthy elites, the Western wealthy elites. And so these contradictions are beginning to break. And so, and this is evident by, a live stream genocide in Gaza. Trump is about to, maybe start attacking Venezuela on the most obvious effort to just take over, control their government, and steal their resources. It's like, now we've been doing this thing our entire history, but it's just hasn't been so in your face. We always, even with the war in Iraq, at least they lied to us, and they spent a whole lot of effort to put in this false narrative to convince people that it wasn't just a fucking resource grab. But
now the
but
drugs
not so
thing
much.
is so thin.
Yeah.
The drugs thing is so thin. Like, I'm not sure if anyone believes it. Anyway, go on.
No, and it's preposterous that the media doesn't just, like, why doesn't the media just isn't on fire, pulling their hair out, demanding, what the fuck, you guys have got to be kidding me, and because they're just facilitating it, and so again, that's the media's job. The media's job is to facilitate the strategies that are put forth by these think tanks, and the government eventually adopts. So the government, eventually, after negotiating, amongst themselves, they have their own. It's like democracy for the wealthy elites, for the ownership class, and they have their own ways of between themselves figuring out, which factions are going to dominate, and which policies they're going to pursue, which strategies they're going to pursue. But then once they do that, it's the media's job to get everybody on board and to facilitate the pursuit of this strategy and the agenda. And so, but at the same time, they have to maintain this facade of liberalism, this facade of a free press, of a press that holds government to account. And so it's just untenable, right? It's untenable because this facade, this image they try to project, necessarily gives way to the cold hard reality below. And so that's just kind of what we're seeing in real time. And again, yeah, if you don't appreciate this reality of class, and how the class divide really influences everything, from our domestic policy, our foreign policy, to our popular culture, you're just kind of entirely detached, and you just really can't understand what's going on. And that was a point of a post that I put out not too long ago. But yeah, the biggest problem for the Western imperialists right now is the rise of China, their effort to, regime change Russia and balkanize Russia and steal Russia's resources. That's backfired tremendously. And so, on all fronts, like we were saying earlier, on all fronts, the empire is in a real dilemma, and they're they don't have any clear options. And so this is showing, this is manifesting itself in a bunch of unprecedented things that we're just seeing on a daily basis, economically, politically. So
yeah, it's a free press owned by 3 corporations.
Right.
Free press owned by 3 corporations that openly, or pretty openly, work with the State Department. That look at Google. If you just look at it, it's there for anyone to see. Google works with Pentagon, and of course all of the networks and television and newspapers, journals. It's very clear for people who are interested in seeing the connection. Absolutely, class is the key.
Yeah, I was gonna say. So that's why they want to remove the idea of class, and they have been very successful at removing the concept of class from the minds of Westerners, because it's only through this concept of class can you realize that how is this an oppositional press? How is this the fifth column of a democracy that is holding power to account if the political parties are owned by the same billionaires that own the media companies? And I mean, this is so obvious, and this is why China and governments that actually represent the people are have to regulate the media in their country. They have to censor because they don't want the billionaires forming their own political parties, forming their own media monopolies so they can indoctrinate and undercut what the government is trying to do on behalf of the people they represent. But in the United States, of course, we think of ourselves as superior because we don't censor our press. Imagine how stupid these motherfuckers are to think that, oh, we don't censor our press in this country. We have freedom, and China's the one that censors, and they're evil and authoritarian because they censor their media, and we don't. It's just so dumb because you don't understand class, and you don't understand we don't need to censor our media because the media is already owned by the exact same people that own our government, and so they work hand in hand. It's a symbiotic relationship. Now, I mean, we could make it. There's a little bit more complexity, right? Because within the ruling class, of course, there's factions, and the factions have different media. And so you see Fox News going after Democrats, and you see CNN and MSNBC going after the Republicans. And so stupid liberals are convinced, well, that's democracy. That's just proof that our system has checks and balances. And it's so dumb because, again, both parties, you stupid motherfuckers, are owned by the same fucking people. Like, wake the fuck up. Anyway, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, the theater, the bipartisan theater is really works so well. I mean, it's yeah, absolutely. This illusion of open debate, this illusion of open debate, while the real topics are removed entirely, are not allowed to be put on the table. They are taken off of the table, and the very intense debate is just different factions of the bourgeoisie arguing with each other and vying for power.
Yeah, that the scope of that debate is so narrow, and like Chomsky articulated it well. And again, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Chomsky, but he was a good observer, and he had some legitimate good criticisms about the system and how it works. And he said, there's very vigorous debate within a very narrow framework. And that fools a lot of people into thinking that, oh, well, we must have a genuine democracy then, right? But I hope these people, can start to figure it out. And again, you have to understand the concept of class in order to understand, exactly what's going on. And that's why it's so important for them to censor that concept of class, and why, the greatest heroes and teachers of reality are attacked and demonized, really. So throughout history and currently today, Xi Jinping is just he's a big monster. He's a dictator, and but that's just par for the course. It's just living in late stage capitalism in the imperial core. This is what we see, and but I think it's important to try and explain it, to discuss it, to think about it, and try and articulate it to try and help people have an understanding beyond the understanding that's indoctrinated from birth to death in the West.
Lenin said it the best. Someone, I think, asked him, how can you tell if a political movement or a party or a person is radical or is a real revolutionary or is real? And he said, do they talk about ownership? Is the topic of ownership on the table? Is that a topic of discussion? If it is, then it is a real movement towards liberation for the majority. If someone does not talk about ownership, then it is not real. It is not a real movement towards the liberation of the majority. Because that is the key. I mean, it's quite simple. Any child can understand it. Just look at ownership. Just look at the ownership of profit-generating property, which anyone who has played the game Monopoly understands, right? That's the only way to get super rich is by through ownership, not through hard work, not through innovation, not through intelligence, not through any of these things. It's ownership that will get you rich. Uh, any child can understand that very literally. And
Yeah.
when you have this economic order and monopolies naturally arise, and they naturally get bigger and bigger, right? And the power and the wealth translates directly into power, into political power, into decision
Yeah.
making power over other people, is increasingly held in the hands of fewer and fewer people, capitalists, right?
No, I
Remember,
like that answer by Lenin. And because liberals are always asking me, well, how do you know if it's a genuine party, or just another, a bunch of liars like the Democrats that only pretend to, and so they throw up their hands and say there is no real difference between alleged, proletarian, rule and bourgeoisie rule. There's no difference. Both of them lie to you. But yeah, no, there's a huge difference, because one of them, if they're focusing on what is on the reality of economic relationships and who owns what, then I mean you can't obfuscate that. You can't lie about that. Like there's a money trail. There's and so once you bring that into people's consciousness, the owners aren't going to do that. The owners want to, they want to obfuscate that reality, and they want to censor that reality, and they don't want to talk about it. And so if you're a party that's talking about ownership, yeah, there's no way that that party is going to, be promoted by the owners themselves. And so that's a good, I learned something, as I do from you often, Leo. So that's a good thing I'm going to incorporate into my thinking.
yeah,
Well, what else? What
and,
else?
and then all of these, well, current events, right? I mean, all of these things are expressions of class interest. Why are these wars happening, right? It's imperialism, it's extraction, it's super profits for the Western corporations. Super profits meaning profits extremely exceeding the normal profits of trade, even capitalist trade, even right, even just bourgeois marketplace that's controlled by a few people. Like super profits of imperialism is exponentially bigger than that, because these extremely skewed, unbalanced, asymmetrical deals that corporations have in Africa, right? Getting the resources for dirt cheap, for next to nothing, the minerals, the diamonds, the gold, uh, uh,
Yeah.
robbery. It's very nearly free, and so the desperation of the bourgeois class sees their profit rate falling, and so they are scrambling, initiating all of these wars. You know, the U.S. puppet Paul Kagame in Rwanda invading the Congo um, via their private militia M23. Currently, committing atrocities. I've heard insiders say 100 times worse than what is happening in Palestine, in the Congo, and the Sudan as well. UAE, another ally U.S. Um, plundering the Sudan, or creating mass chaos in order to create the conditions for Western corporations to extract super profits. And these things, all of it, as you rightly said, is animated by class interest. And we have to. This is why that little exchange that we had, it is class interest ultimately is not bad people. It's not bad people with bad intentions.
Yeah.
It's not that they hate humanity. It's not that they hate Africans and they hate, Palestinians. It is class interest that
Yeah.
ultimately is the driver. And of course, you are right that in that process, class interest does make people insane. It does make people psychotic. It does make people. It does entirely erode their humanity and erode their sense of empathy and compassion. That's just out the window because cold economic interest and power overrides all of these things. But ultimately, it is a cold, calculating, rational class interests that drives all of these atrocities, that all of these horrendous fucking atrocities that's unfolding all over the world. But
Yeah.
I really think this is the last spasm of violence because the bourgeois empire is in shambles. It is falling apart, and yeah, that is why they are desperate, starting all of these wars.
Yeah, for sure. Very interesting times that we are living in right now, and we're very fortunate to be alive now, and in the next 20 years, there's going to be really significant shifts, and you know, my big thing is this: it's unclear, what the West is going to do in response to their own, terminal, inevitable decline, and in response to China's inevitable rise and the rise of, Asia, Africa, Russia. I mean, these are forces that the West can't stop. But we just don't know how unhinged they will be in their response. And so, like for instance, in Venezuela, Trump is threatening to just, I don't know, just murder their government, their, legitimate government, just because we want their shit. And so, that would obviously be destabilizing. Same with Iran. I mean, they would really like to, destroy Iran, and conceivably nuclear weapons could be used against Iran in this window, before Iran, has their own nukes to respond. Because once Iran gets their own nukes, of course, you're not going to nuke them, but there's a window of opportunity to do that before they get it. So, I'm worried about the unhingedness of Western imperialism as they're facing the reality of their inevitable decline, and how they're going to respond. But I hope that they're going to be a little bit rational, and they're not going to be the psychopaths that I often call them. But you're right. When people hear, oh, they're psychopaths, that can kind of turn them off, or that can feed into this idea that the driving force behind this is just, we got bad people. If we only were able to elect good people, like Bernie Sanders, man, he's a good guy. Let's just vote harder. And that's just, if you think that way, you're just entirely detached from reality, and it's too bad. So yeah, I mean, the electoral process is not designed to allow the working class to influence and make change. That is not the purpose of this electoral process. It's to pacify the working class and convince them that the reality of dictatorship isn't really the reality. That we actually have a democracy, and that's the whole point. And it's this double game where they're trying to present. It's like advertising. We're going to advertise ourselves this way, but in reality, our product is like this. And we can't be honest about our product. If we were honest about our product, nobody would fucking want it. And so they're just really good at advertising, Leo. They're fucking top notch.
Absolutely.
And I think as people's consciousness evolves, their advertising will be less effective. But they're very effective at advertising to the consciousness that they have created, since World War II in the West, with this freedom, democracy, with this, socialism and communism is evil and authoritarian. Like they've kind of created this this consciousness that they know how to exploit. But as the consciousness evolves and shifts and works its way out of these nonsense paradigms, which it has previously been engaged in, I think their advertising is going to be less effective, and they're going to not know what to do. But anyway, let's see. I got Dust James in the comments section. Dust, friend of the show. We appreciate you sharing your thoughts and joining us as a guest every now and then. We're talking about ICE. What do you think, Leo?
It's horrendous. It's fucking,
Yeah.
it's crazy. I mean, but on the other side of all the poor people, like literally being tortured in camps, right? That are held in these camps. As much as it's horrendous, it is showing the world a clearer and clearer image of liberal democracy, of what it actually is in times of crisis. And yeah, on.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, that is a great point, and they're struggling with that, right? Because again, the imperatives and the needs of their empire is just being disconnected from the advertising that they promote themselves as, to the point that I think France, it was England. So England said that they're going to stop cooperating with the United States or something because of what we're doing in the Caribbean, destroying all these fishing boats. So, and it's bullshit, right? Because in reality, of course, they're as tight as can be. The bourgeoisie, the ruling class in England, and the ruling class here. But they're forced to give lip service to this liberalism, and they're forced to pretend that they're appalled by Trump's actions here in the Caribbean. And so they're forced to pretend that, oh, that's so bad that we disavow it. And because of that, there's going to be consequences for the United States, and we're going to stop cooperating with intelligence sharing or whatever the fuck it was. But it's like Netanyahu said, right? It's like what Netanyahu said when he was at the UN General Assembly, and he was saying, all those countries that vocally denounce me and say that we're doing bad things, privately, they come and thank me. And I guarantee you he's not lying. And that's just the reality of it. I mean, so,
Yeah,
but yeah, this is the paradigm. It's like the contradiction between what they pretend to believe in and what they really believe in is being made manifest. And that is the epitome of why reality is Marxist. Like, that's it.
yeah, absolutely. This theater of bipartisan uh, conflicts, right? Of the two sides of the same coin in conflict with each other. It's the golden egg that has 1,000 uses. I mean, I'm just thinking of currently, New York Times just released an article which, if you read it, it basically says the Ukraine conflict is a proxy war designed, implemented by the USA. It literally says that in the New York fucking Times, right? And all of these Europeans, I live in Europe, and all of these European liberals will just say, well, that's just Trump. That's just Trump,
Right. Yeah.
fake news from Trump. And because he's, a dictator, just like Vladimir Putin and just like Xi Jinping. And so that's just Trump bullshit. So it's absolutely like amazing how well this bipartisan, theater works even, well in all of the spheres of influence of empire.
Yeah, and why Trump is such a great vehicle at this point in time for the imperialists, because he can do these really illiberal things that everybody wants to do, but they're constrained by the past several generations of pretending that liberalism is important to them, and so they're happy to get him to do all these illiberal things, and then they can just blame him when he's gone after he's done everything they want him to do. They'll say, oh, that was Trump, he was bad. And then they'll have the Democrats come in, and continue the same policies, only and pretend that they opposed everything Trump did. But I've written a lot about how Trump is just an invaluable asset to them, for that reason. And so, like you said, yeah, the Europeans are going to say, oh, that's just Trump. We're not really like that. But yeah, I don't believe them. it's interesting that the New York Times is being, because they have to balance credibility, right, with, furthering the interests of the imperialists. And so, again, the contradictions are becoming too obvious for them to have any credibility to maintain them, and maintain these lies. And so yeah, to have credibility as a news outlet, quote unquote, they're forced to tell truths that they've been denying this whole time, that only Marxists like us have been telling people this is obvious what's going on here. And years and years later, they're finally feeling compelled to say the same things. And so yeah, it's just more proof of the reality of Marxism.
Yes, and the desperation is palpable. It's becoming more and more. The desperation is becoming more and more obvious. Just earlier today, I was doom scrolling a bit, looking at funny cats videos and whatnot. Food porn. I'm kind of addicted to food porn from all over the world. But up comes these two brand new social media personalities that I've never seen before. These two guys, one guy who's walking around Kiev, who's just saying like Russia is a terrible country. They export terrorism and nothing else. They have no culture and like just like straight up like unhinged like Russophobia, just going off and. Thousands and thousands of likes,
Yeah.
tens of thousands
Yeah.
of likes, and I've never seen him before. And there's this other guy, this young kid, being interviewed by a woman who had no idea who the fuck she is, no idea who any of these people are. But I've never seen them before. They're just on social media, like talk or like whatever videos circulating, and this young guy was saying, "Well, all those videos that say Russia is beautiful, like they're all paid by the Kremlin. It's all Russian propaganda. Be careful when you are watching social media videos of these personalities. They are not real. They are fake. It's all complete. It's just Kremlin propaganda. When they say like Russia, has beautiful landscapes and like animals or like whatever culturally, like what the fuck, like, and that's exactly what he is. That's exactly what he is. He's a paid propagandist. I have never seen these people. I mean, I'm a pretty avid social media user, and never seen these people before. And all of a sudden, they come up. Um, and Russia is terrible at propaganda. Russia is really bad at propaganda. They're like a little bit like China. They're nerds. They don't like. Have you seen Russian movies? Like that's been made in the last fucking 30 years since 1990. Like there's some great Soviet films, obviously, and some Tarkovsky, like fucking ultimate amazing filmmaker. But like Russian films for the last 30 years, they're terrible. Like worse than German, like as bad as German films. Like they're not good at at the media. Russians are
Yeah.
like getting. Hopefully, they will be getting better because there's some amazing Russian, obviously, writers, authors, and thinkers. Obviously, amazing. But in terms of media, like they're trying to copy Hollywood and doing a very good job. Like and they're just terrible at propaganda and
Yeah.
compared to the U.S. where
Yeah.
where it is a refined art form to its like zenith.
Yeah.
It's
So I mean, this is a great topic of discussion. Talking about propaganda, talking about how social media, Hollywood, film, all these platforms and avenues of information are being used, to benefit, the class interest, the ownership class interest. And so, I mean, you talked about social media, and it's so true. I mean, they're able to promote and put these people in everybody's feed. And so if you happen to have an interest in the topic, you're gonna check it out. And so I'm not sure when I see that, these nobodies talking nonsense about a particular issue, and it's usually like a pretty well produced segment, right? But I'm just curious, like how many real viewers they have and how many are just pumped up numbers. That's one question I'm not sure about. But for sure, they're able to manipulate the algorithms and make sure that those are viewed by a lot of people, a lot of real eyeballs, not just bots. And so even if like half of them are not real views, some of them are, and they're able to manipulate that through the algorithm. But they're always indoctrinating, their messages. Like, I mean, these are, these people I've never seen before. Like, what are your qualifications? Like, what are you talking about? And like, just for instance, saying, oh, China's about to collapse, right? You say China's about to collapse, and you're somebody that you've never been seen before. I've never seen before, and they have 2 million views. It's like, I mean, so these social media platforms are definitely weaponized against rationality, against reality, and trying to manufacture in people's minds, ideas that just aren't true and ideas that are going to be beneficial for the interests of the ownership class. Hollywood is the same thing. Hollywood is, oh man, it's a cesspool. And sometimes I'll watch a movie and I'll just be disgusted. Oh, these fucking writers and producers, they really thought this is something that they ought to like produce and shove down people's throats. But they know that we don't have a lot going on in this culture, right? We have sports, and you have music and movies, and all of those things are becoming more increasingly empty and not satisfying to people. And as a result, they're just getting more crazy and salacious and just disgusting with their, some of the topics and some of the themes. But ultimately, what they never talk about is fucking reality, right? They never talk about the obvious, important elephant in the room, and they're always, projecting this image like, the FBI are the good guys, the CIA are the good guys, and they're around the world trying to stop the bad guys. And we know who the bad guys are. It's the Russians, it's the North Koreans, it's the Cubans, it's the Venezuelans, it's the Chinese. And these are just the messages, that are reinforced. And it's so, it's so beneficial, from the perspective of the ownership class. But if we're interested in having an informed, proletariat, an informed working class that understands reality, like it's very detrimental. And it's going to be causing problems, and it's going to be holding humanity back for generations to come. This immense total indoctrination of people's minds. It's just not good, but it's benefiting these psychopaths, and not because they're psychopaths, but because they are pursuing their own best interest. But what they're doing is psychopathic. Like they are destroying minds,
Yeah.
and it's going to have harmful effects for our species for generations. And they should be held accountable. They should go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Siberia to all of them. I remember in my political awakening, the very day that I realized that James Bond is exactly one of those guys that went around the global south assassinating democratically elected socialist leaders in West Asia, in Latin America, in Africa. I remember, like, not even too long ago, maybe 7 years ago, 10 years ago. I mean, just really, like connecting the dots. Like, wait a second, he's a MI5 operative who goes around the world doing what exactly? Destabilizing governments and murdering, people like Patrice Lumumba and Thomas Sankara and, Allende in Chile, which Chile is, I don't know too much about it, but I hear a communist just got elected in Chile. You know anything about that? Is she for real?
Just basically what you said. Yeah, the Communist Party. It's one of the oldest parties, one of the oldest communist parties in existence on the planet. And they said, I mean, the terminology was they look like they're going to win. So I don't know if they've actually won yet or not. And I don't
I
know. Yeah,
believe I thought I saw that. Yeah.
no, you might be right, and I have not been paying close attention. It'll be interesting. I mean, I was surprised that a leftist won in Colombia. Like I thought that was pretty much, imperialist territory, and I thought the imperialists were going to control those elections. So they definitely didn't seem like they wanted Petro to win, and so it made me have to rethink my analysis. Like, I mean, is the empire focused like the Eye of Sauron? It just left South America, and it's been focused on the Middle East, on Asia, and so the people in Colombia were able to overcome and get an actual representative government in place. How did that
Yeah,
happen?
I think. Yeah, yeah. I don't think you have to throw out your analysis out the window. I think it's just a matter of capacity. I think it's just a matter of how much capacity Empire, the CIA, has to influence elections anymore in Latin America
Yeah,
or elsewhere, to stifle, suppress democracy, like the actual workings of democracy. And just because the election system in the U.S. is like basically entirely hopeless, hopelessly corrupt, tight that they prevent anyone real from entering the race, entering the stadium. It doesn't mean that electoral process in Colombia or Chile is equally as completely corrupt. So and of course we have to remember that the Bolsheviks started out as so, social democrats, meaning that socialists that sought to use the electoral system to achieve their goals until it was blocked by the power structure, and then at which point they became revolutionary socialists. But anyway, that's a little bit of digression. Scheinbaum also is was elected in Mexico, and she is promising. She's facing really, real tough um, choices, whether to bend the knee to the empire or get ousted. It really looks like, right? Like the pressure is on her. I have a hard time seeing any way out for her. She can, keep her integrity and dignity as a leftist, or yeah, a leftist in the broad sense, and anti-imperialist um, to a degree, or risk getting the Gaddafi treatment.
I mean, yeah, Maduro obviously is facing that more than she is. Yeah, there's some protests, and there's a lot of discussion and debate whether those protests are just another, regime change operation by the U.S., another color revolution, or if. And that's the thing. Like, and Brian Berletic always makes clear that there's no perfect government, and any U.S. orchestrated regime change operation is going to have legitimate grievances. Like, they're going to seize on to these legitimate grievances and then use them as a area of leverage and pressure against the government they want out. And it's either to get the government to do policies that they're been unwilling to do, for the West and benefit of the West, or to oust them and put in somebody who will do those policies. So it's I mean, we will see how she responds to that. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's hard to conceive of things in a way where the United States isn't just really, really strong and isn't able to just do what it wants and get rid of, people that are inconvenient to them and putting in people that are convenient, especially in our next door neighbors, like Mexico or Venezuela. But I'm optimistic that I'm exaggerating the power of the United States, and maybe the Mexican people can resist these things, and maybe the president can get the support of her people. Everybody says that she's one of the most popular elected leaders among the people. Something like 70% approval rating. But yeah, it's a hot spot. And shoot, there was, when you were talking, there was a whole issue I wanted to discuss, and then I forgot about it when you went to Mexico, and I started thinking about Mexico. That's what happens when you're our age. Your mind.
Well,
Uh,
also pretty strenuous hours. But before Mexico, I was talking about Chile, right? Or yeah, Chile, the and Latin
Oh, okay. I think
America.
yeah, no, you jogged my memory. I was going to bring up the topic of, the split within MAGA. And, people are talking about it. You know,
Over
first,
Israel and other things.
yeah.
And,
So
and
Trump
Epstein.
supporters, they were sold. They were, Trump advertised himself a certain way, and he advertised himself a certain way because it was a smart electoral tactic. And it was a smart way to get support, appeal to disaffected working class, and tell them what they wanted to hear to get in power. But it's been very obvious. It's been less than a year that Trump's been in power the second time, unrestrained, not having to worry about a re-election, and you can see where his interests are, where his principles are. They are nowhere near any of the ways that he advertised himself as. And this is upsetting people. This is upsetting people within MAGA. Tucker Carlson, he's the biggest one. But a lot of these voices, like Nick Fuentes is another one, they've been pro-Trump because they listened to his rhetoric and they identified with it and they supported it. But now that, he's showing himself to not be America first, to care more about Israel, to continue these wars, to threaten these wars, not end the wars like in Ukraine, etc. They're becoming upset. And so, and they're being loyal to these principles, the MAGA principles, but not loyal to Trump himself. Whereas, some of the MAGA people continue, the more dumb ones, the less principled ones, are loyal to Trump because they just, that's where they're not smart enough to realize that, he's not really on your side. He was just telling you these things you wanted to hear to get your vote. I mean, do you have thoughts on the split within MAGA?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what you mean by America, right? When you say America first, like if you mean the American banks, do you mean the American bourgeoisie? Do you mean the American Wall Street? Is that if that's what you mean, then all of these words are America first. Then all of
Yeah,
these,
no,
pro-Israel, like Israel is America first because
yeah,
Israel protects U.S.
yeah,
dominance in the most geostrategically important region on Earth, the part of the
yeah.
world that connects Europe, Africa, Asia, that is the crossroads of the world, of the ancient world. I mean, that's where
Not,
civilization started.
yeah.
So
And that's
Israel
not
is
even to mention
America.
all the energy they export.
Absolutely, all the resources. Absolutely. So Israel is the attack dog of the USA there to destabilize the region, keep it in perpetual chaos and war, and suppress socialism, suppress first of all, before even socialism, suppress unity, Arabic unity, regional unity, not only Arabs but also Persians. To suppress unity, to destroy unity, right? It's the knife in the back of West Asian unity, and it has been doing its job since 19 whatever. When was it? 48. Um, I mean,
I
Israel
mean, yeah,
also,
Lawrence of Arabia after World War One.
yeah, not only West Asia is the IDF footprint is all over the world, right? They trained the Batista death squads. They trained the IDF was in Chile, right? Ousting Allende, democratically elected Allende. The IDF was everywhere in Africa as well. And right now, uh, Israel is funding the Islamists together with the CIA and Saudi Arabia, another pawn of the U.S. They are really now trying to violently overthrow the Sahel alliance in West Africa, which is a huge threat. I mean,
Yeah.
it is amazing what Ibrahim Traore has been doing. Like building hospitals and roads and creating jobs and like Burkina Faso made, what was it, 18 billion off of their own gold last year to 2024, whereas previously they are paid like 1 billion by France, which
Yeah.
takes all of their gold, and that's just gold. We're not even talking about other resources. So like real sovereignty, real, Burkinabe resources for the Burkinabe people, and he just gave a really strong speech in the African Union. I think I don't remember which conference it was, but citing Sankara, his first thing that he said is the spirit of Thomas Sankara lives on. His body is no longer with us, but the spirit lives on, and he just like clear, concise, talking about imperialism, talking about these accelerating efforts by France, by the United States, with the support of Israel, to destabilize, to attack, and especially attacking the Russians who are in Burkina Faso, helping with the protection of the sovereign independence, real decolonization movement. Um, so, I mean, Trump's thing in Nigeria also threatening to invade Nigeria. I mean, like people just need to think, right? Islamist, uh, fundamentalist terror groups, right? The people that banned music in Mali, one of the most musically rich places on earth. Uh, Al Nusra, or group was it, or they're constantly changing their names, but Islamist groups was able to take over all of Mali for like, how long was it? A year, 2 years, back in 2016 or 17 or something like that. But anyway, they took over the entire fucking giant country of Mali, right? And
It
there
has a
is
lot of
a
gold mines. Yeah.
absolutely, and there is the world's largest military drone base in the world right next door in Niger, operated by the United States. Did not lift a finger to counter the Islamists taking over all of Mali, right? Or
Well,
like, what the fuck is AFRICOM doing? Like, if they're protecting freedom, like AFRICOM, the U.S. has a massive military presence in Africa. They
yeah.
have like
No, they're
untold number of
facilitating it
bases.
because these groups work for them. I mean, there are
Yeah.
proxies.
How can people just not fucking think for themselves?
Yeah.
Like how do people not have any critical thinking skills? Like I talk to like German liberals. Like I work in music, right? Especially African music. So I have friends in this cultural, like African dance music, whatever world, and these fucking liberals, right? They just absolutely like they just don't think about it. I'm like, how is Al Nusra, Boko Haram in Nigeria, like so strong, like in Kenya, conducting terror attacks, killing hundreds, thousands of people, right? How are they able to do that? And why do you not see a single news article about the U.S. AFRICOM military, the U.S. military in Africa that has been stationed there for decades, fighting them, fighting the Islamists? Why is there not a single report of that? Like, you know, like why is AFRICOM not countering Boko Haram? And meanwhile, we have in Central African Republic not one statue but two statues erected in dedication to the Wagner Group.
Yeah.
Like Americans
I
don't know
know.
that. Like Europeans don't know that either. It's not reported. BBC actually wrote an article about it, but obviously filled with bullshit. But people just don't like these news items. People just not in people's mind. People say the Western left says Russia is imperialist. Like what? Okay, I don't listen to me. I defer to Africans. I defer to Palestinians. I defer to the people who are so victimized by imperialism that they have not the luxury of illusion, that they have to see the world clearly, that they are forced by their extreme victimization and the horrible circumstances that they are put into by imperialism to see the world clearly. And Palestinians, Africans, I mean, these two statues in Central African Republic, one is dedicated to Prigozhin, to the memory of Prigozhin, and another one dedicated to both Wagner soldiers and Central African Republic soldiers, because Wagner landed in Central African Republic 2019 or 2018, something like that, to help them fight Islamist terror and giving their lives and sacrificing their lives. I'm sure not for great financial reward, because like Central African Republic probably like not a strong economy. But anyway,
So yeah, I mean that is how the imperialists are able to exploit the resources and take the resources out of Africa by keeping it destabilized. So the West is not interested in stability and sovereignty for those countries and development. Like all of those things are the antithesis of what imperialism wants for Africa. And so what we really want for Africa is to just continue to extract those resources as cheaply as possible and leaving Africa itself with as poor as possible. I mean, that is what Western imperialism is interested in doing. And so, yeah, when you have when they see Russia as genuinely, being helpful and facilitating development, facilitating defense against these Western-backed groups that keep the area destabilized, yeah, they support Russia. I did want to, yeah, you said you covered a lot of ground, and I wanted to go back to MAGA, and because you made a good point about the the division within MAGA, and you made the point that it depends on what you consider the national interest. Is the national interest what the banks want, what the the ownership class wants? Because if it is, Israel first is putting America first, exactly like you said. And so this gets us back to why it is important for them to get rid of this idea of class. Because if you don't think in the concept of class, you buy into the indoctrination that the national interest is imperialism, that the national interest is being a strong country with 1,000 military bases around the world, where we're constantly, clubbing the heads of the bad guys, of the authoritarians, and you buy into all this nonsense. But in reality, of course, there's no national interest. There's no such thing. There's two classes with oppositional interests. One class wants to maintain this empire and exploit other workers and other humans to the maximum extent possible. And then you have the interest of the working class. It's internationalism, it's solidarity, it's development, peace through mutual prosperity, or mutual prosperity through peace. This is what the vast majority of humanity wants: a better system that represents our interests and that furthers these interests for everyone. But again, the bourgeoisie, they don't want that, because if we have that, they will not have the privilege that they currently do. And so they're fighting to maintain this current system that most ridiculously and obscenely privileges them. And that's why MAGA is so dumb. That's why MAGA is so brain dead, because the concept of class does not enter into the thinking of both sides. You have one side of MAGA that's loyal to Trump. You have one side of MAGA loyal to some of the bullshit principles that Trump pretended to espouse. We're not going to put Israel first. But these people, and I side with them, and I appreciate them. The libertarian types, Dave Smith, what's that guy's name? I just said it earlier. He interviewed Putin. What the hell is his name? He was on CNN. He had a CNN talk show for a while. Was it Crossfire? Anyway, who's that the main guy? Not Nick
Tucker
Quinte.
Carlson.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Not Tucker Carlson.
So that's who I was talking about, Tucker Carlson. So in this MAGA split, of course, I appreciate Tucker Carlson more, because he is, he represents the anti-imperialist, the peace faction, no more wars, no more empire, and no more fealty to Israel, right? So given the split, like I like this side better, but again, both sides and even that side is just totally confused and detached from reality, because the idea of class does not enter into their thinking. And they have these weird ideas like Israel runs the United States or something. No, all it is like you said, it's the the owners, the bankers and the billionaires understanding that Israel is our asset and we have to support Israel because doing that is putting America first. And so the problem is, go ahead.
No, yeah, and I'm just saying, like, and line of rhetoric leads to real anti-Semitism. I only wanted to add a little bit. I didn't want to interrupt you. Go on.
No, I was about done. I was winding down, and so it was great that you had something to say. But I mean, that's true. So, and I mean, let's talk about that. I mean, anti-Semitism, it is definitely, so Dust is correct. Libertarians are austerity, and it's, so libertarianism is a net benefit to, imperialism, even despite, a few factions of libertarians being legitimate anti-imperialists. It's like, again, they're just so detached from reality that their rhetoric is not threatening to the status quo. But I don't know. I don't know. That might be too strong.
Well, sometimes their rhetoric, sometimes it is a little bit threatening, I would say.
No, I overstated the case. I think, the anti-imperialism does get people involved, and it has caused people to question, why are we starting all these wars? Why do we have this 1,000 military bases? Why are we protecting Israel and allowing them, facilitating this genocide in Gaza? So it's good. We're seeing a consciousness shift, and I think libertarians are partly responsible for that. So I don't want to shortchange.
Absolutely. Maybe we can call it procedural anti-imperialism of the libertarians, of the non-Marxist anti-imperialist camp, the even rightist, populist right anti-imperialist. Maybe it's tactical or procedural, and then we have principled anti-imperialism, which is the real anti-imperialism of communists of global South. Right? Maybe that's a good way to put it. Also, I've been really impressed with Kim Iverson. I mean, I know she's not a huge as big as Tucker Carlson, but she's been pretty on point lately. I've just seen a few interviews and what. But yeah, the contradictions are ever intensifying, and it's not sustainable. This order. Of course, the problem is that the real anti-imperialism, the real also domestic way forward has been taken off the table, has been taken off of the menu, right? And so people who become disillusioned with the liberal establishments turn to the right. This is what's happening in Germany. It's really crazy. I mean, not. It's expected. It's very predictable, but it's still insane. I mean, AfD is set to probably power in the next few years.
Yeah, and I mean, why does that happen? I mean, it seems like it happens again because there's a lack of class consciousness, there's a lack of understanding, and in their minds, in their indoctrinated minds, they have some certainties that are beyond question. And one of those certainties that is beyond question is that socialism fails, is that socialism is authoritarianism and it's dumb. And so they are just incapable of tapping in to the historic reality and to the class, the truth that class is central to understanding reality. Like that whole way of thinking is just off the table for them because their minds have been formatted to exist within these very narrow parameters. And so it's literally impossible for them to conceive of, hey, maybe socialism, isn't what I think it is. Maybe there's something there. And of course, everything is there, like the total reality is there. But, because of the indoctrination that so many in the West have been subjected to, it's like it's impossible for them to even question that. So they go right. So they go right, and they don't see it as going right. I mean, they call it right. They call it culturally right, conservative, whatever. Yeah. But okay, what were your thoughts? Because I feel like I
was going to say socialism has been resoundingly successful everywhere it has been tried. Doubling life expectancy, like ending like 1,000 years slavery society, like fucking ending illiteracy in 20 years. Hello, are we still there?
Yeah.
What has failed
You were
everywhere?
frozen for a second, and I didn't know if it was me that was going out or you, but you
Yeah.
appeared frozen for
What
me.
what what has what has failed everywhere? What has failed miserably everywhere is neoliberalism. Like, name one place where neoliberal shock therapy has been implemented that has become better, that has improved conditions for most people. I mean, like, not a single place. Eastern Europe used to be prosperous, used to be absolutely healthy societies, and ever since neoliberalism of the 1990s, I mean, Romania bled like something like 75% of their young people, of their most talented young people, went to Germany, went to other places. Total brain drain, and like poverty increased, and I mean, there's also a theory, a very dark theory that this is, of course, serves another purpose, which is to ready these countries for war, to create the poverty conditions in Eastern Europe, to ready them, prepare them as potential Ukraines. But anyway, um, I mean, I guess the examples people say is Singapore, or Malaysia, the Asian tigers or whatever. Well, those are show ponies of neoliberalism. Those are the U.S. beef them up, uh,
Yeah.
like a lot of favorable investment deals in order to have a show of
Yeah, Hong Kong
capitalist
was very similar.
success.
Hong Kong, all the multinational banks put a headquarters there because they had very nice, rules and banking policies, very low tax, and so it was designed specifically to attract all these big financial institutions that could then go about, exploiting all of Asia. And it was headquartered there, and the wealth was contained in that little city state. And Singapore is very similar. But even Hong Kong and
Yeah,
even Singapore were a lot of they were benefited also from a lot of socialist policies. So like public housing,
yeah,
Singapore, 90% of the houses are publicly owned. Like they're
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah.
privately owned. So there's a lot of aspects of socialism that benefit the people, even
And
though
that's from the proximity to China. Yeah,
and China
but
did learn. Yeah, go ahead.
Hong Kong under the colonial administration, English rule, it was horrible for poor people. We see those, closet apartments, those closet apartments which ignorant, stupid motherfuckers blame on socialism. Like, what the fuck? They would, like, people literally, like, pull up these tiny apartments in Hong Kong and say, like, see, that's CCP. I'm like, no, that's literally British rule. Like, that's a result of British rule and neoliberalism. But anyway,
They
hey,
ruled it
listen,
for 100 years. Go ahead.
no, um, I was just gonna say this uh, conversation is awesome. It's got me fired up, but I do have some work to do. We've gone an hour and a half, almost an hour and a half, and I do kind of need to go.
No worries. That's great.
Can we
No, I
continue?
enjoyed it. I think it was substantive. We had a few viewers. We got up to a few viewers, not bad. Um, I'll be back on
Yeah, it's just
Friday.
fun talking to you, man. Yeah.
I'll be back on Friday with Christine Lynn. Just me and Christine Lynn. So yeah, with Carlos passing, with Ian was today traveling back to Crimea, and so I also invited Greg, but he was busy. But it was great. So it's a new dynamic for me. Just like just two of us. I think it worked good. Probably because we're both super smart. It's probably why it worked. Um, but I'll be
And
doing the
handsome.
same thing on Friday. So yeah, thank you very
Yes.
much, Leo. Uh,
Thank you.
we'll be talking soon, and I'll be seeing you on Facebook.
And
I'll
rest
see
in
everyone
peace,
else.
Carlo. Rest in peace, Carlo.
Yeah.
I will miss. We had our spats, but he's such a sweet man.
Yeah, we had a
But
memorial program ish last Tuesday, remembering him. But yeah, he's missed. He was a great contribution to our roundtable, and we can't replace him. But all right, guys, we will see you. We'll see you later. I'll see
onwards.
you, Leo. Bye.